Hi, today we're going to learn about synthetic and long division. Synthetic and long division are two kinds of polynomial division. But before we start jumping into this new stuff, we're going to jump into something that we know. Just as a quick review, we're going to do regular long division. 328 divided by 4. Now, we know that we have to change it into something that we know how to work with. Ta-da! This looks way more familiar. Now, we always start, of course, with a number inside here. 4 doesn't go to 3. Well, getting ahead of myself there. 4 doesn't go to 33, so we move to 32. 4 goes into 32 8 times, so you put the 8 up there. 8 times 4 is 32, and we're going to subtract that, we get 0. Now we're going to work with 8. We bring down the 8. 8 divided by 4 is equal to 2. Put the 2 up there. 4 times 2 is equal to 8. 8 minus 8 is 0. Now, no remainder, so we don't have to worry about that, and our final answer is 82. Now, I hope that's a quick refresher about what we're going to do. Now, we're going to move on to polynomial long division, which is a little more complicated, throwing in some variables this time. Here's our first example. We're going to start with x squared minus 9x minus 10, and we're going to divide that by x plus 1. Now first, we're going to set out the problem like we did before. Now, we're dividing by x plus 1, so that goes on the outside of our box. X squared minus 9x minus 10, sorry, cut off the 1 there, is what we're dividing, so that goes underneath the box. We're going to start with the x squared and the x. These are the first two numbers we're going to be working with right now. You always start with the first number, or in this case, a variable, x squared. Similar to in long division. Same as you would out here. You always work with the first number, x. We need to find out how many times x goes into x squared, or x squared divided by x. In this case, we know that it is x, so that's what we're going to write in right there. So, after we put the x on top, we're going to multiply it by the second number that we have on the outside, which in this case is 1. So, x times 1 is equal to 1x. So, we're also going to bring this down. So, x times x is x squared. We're going to put this in parentheses because we're going to do something later that might get a little complicated. X squared. And we're going to add that to x times 1, which is 1x. These parentheses serve to keep our positives from being positive to keep being positive until we distribute this negative. The negative is here because we're subtracting as we would any other long division problem. And here it is all nice and distributed. So this is what it should look like. Let's make sure it's nice and clean before we start confusing some stuff. Now, x squared minus x is equal to 0. Positive x and negative x squared, positive x squared and negative x squared cancel out, so we don't even have to worry about that. Now, negative 9x minus 1x is equal to negative 10x. Now, this is what we're going to work with. But remember, we have to bring down that extra negative 10 we have up here. So we bring that down, and that's what we're working with. We're going to divide negative 10x first. You always start with the first digit, guys. Remember that. Negative 10x divided by x is equal to negative 10. So that's what we put down. Now, this is where it might get a little confusing the way it looks. But what we're going to do here now is we're going to multiply negative 10 times x to get negative 10x. And negative 10 times positive 1 to get negative 10 again. Now, sorry about that, but we didn't distribute in this case. We didn't show our work. But what it means is, since you're subtracting this, you're actually going to end up adding it in this case. So, negative 10 plus 10x is equal to 0. And negative 10 plus 10 is equal to 0. So, your final answer is x minus 10. Ta-da! We finished the problem. Good job, guys. Now we're going to move on to something a little bit more difficult. Actually, a little difficult, but also easier at the same time. Isn't that tricky? Anyways, it's called synthetic division. Actually, now that I think about it, it was more of an oxymoron than tricky. Anyways, synthetic division. It's basically a shortcut to what we just did. And this is our first example. Divide x squared plus 5x plus 6 by x minus 1. We have to change it into something that we can work with. But in this case, we're going to pull out the 1 and the 5 and the 6. Now, you're probably thinking, where is this 1 she's talking about that's in front of the x squared? Now remember, if a variable does not have a number assigned to it, like so, right here, it means there's an imaginary 1 in front of it. And now that we've changed it, this is what we get. The reason that this has become x plus 1 is because previously it was a negative. Now when we do this, whenever we put it into that reverse box you just saw, we always have to switch the signs. So the negative 1 becomes a positive 1. Now we bring up the numbers that we just saw. 1 for the x squared, 5 for the 5x, and 6 for the 6 that we saw. You're going to want to put a 0 underneath this, like so. Because the way that this works is that you can't just start working with just the blue numbers you see. You have to add the 0 to figure out what do you start multiplying and adding and all that. So 1 plus 0 is equal to 1. This line right here means that all these blue numbers are going to be added in this vertical direction. I'll show you right now. So 1 plus 0 is equal to 1. This 1 right here we're going to multiply by our little box 1 over here. 1 plus 1. So that way we figure out what goes right underneath the 5. I promise all this craziness is going to make sense. Now we have 1 in this place. We put it right underneath. We're going to do 5 plus 1 is equal to 6. So we're going to do the same thing we did before. 6 times 1 is equal to 6. Ta-da! We have 6. So 6 plus 6 is equal to 12. So we're going to disregard because we kind of messed up there. And we're going to remember that that is a 12. So on your papers, you need to make sure you put a 12. Forget the 0. 12. 6 plus 6 is 12. Now we add the variables. So what happens is x squared plus 5x plus 6 divided by x minus 1. Your answer is going to be x plus 6. But you are going to have a remainder. Remember, the remainder is going to be 12. And yeah, you can kind of see we messed up here. This is supposed to be plus 6 and this is supposed to be a 6. But like I said, the answer is supposed to be x plus 6, remainder 12. So, sorry about that. Okay, now that we got over the basics, we're going to have a little exit question to finish off our lesson. Here is the first problem. X cubed, my bad. X cubed minus 5x squared plus 3x minus 2 divided by x plus 1. So I want you to try and solve that. And while we do that, you get to listen to some of my favorite music. Now, depending on which one you like better, this is the answer of it in long division. And here's the answer in synthetic division. Oh, and yeah, I started playing this again, sorry. Nice job. We have finished. We are done with our lesson. But actually, I lied. We're not completely done. We're going to do a little summary just to recap before we get a little bit more of extra practice. Remember, the first step is that when you get something that looks like this, you change it to this so that you can work with it. This is what your end problem is going to look like. Remember, the x and the x squared, they cancel out after you distribute the negative. Don't forget, that negative is so important that can change a complete answer to your problem. And don't forget, bring down everything, carry it out, multiply, add, all that stuff, and then your answer is going to be x minus 10. Now for some synthetic division. Remember, when you get something like this, first thing you're going to do is pull out the numbers, and you're going to change the sign to the opposite of what it's given to you in your problem. In this case, positive. This is going to be the way it works, but remember, 6 plus 6 is 12, so forget that 0 we have there. And the final answer is going to be x plus 1 plus 12. Now, like I said, great job on keeping up with all our mistakes and all that. Sorry, we apologize. First time doing this, but this is the part that I promise is going to be error-free. Now, we're going to do some extra practice because you don't always get it the first time around. So our long division example 1, take down, write it down, check it out. And I hope you pause the video before that, sorry. And here is the answer to example 1, x plus 2. And our second example, go ahead and take a whack at it. And here we have example 2's answer, x minus 5. So, now we're going to have some extra practice for synthetic division. Here's the first example, take a whack at it. This is the way that you would go about solving it and setting up your equation for it. And this is your final answer. Here we have example 2, please solve. Here we have how you would go about solving it. And this is again your final answer. And congratulations, you have survived and made it through our synthetic and long division lesson. I hope you like it, and I hope you did learn some and we didn't confuse you anymore. Thanks.